Welcome to Let's Talk About It with Sons and Daughters podcast. I am so excited because I'm actually sharing with Addison and Juli today, and we're talking about something fun, something near and dear to both of our hearts, all of our hearts, actually.
Sometimes fun.
Sometimes fun, and that is family. Now, we do realize that during this time, obviously everyone's on lockdown. That's why you guys see the setup that we have, the unusual setup, our great mics, everything like that. During this time, there's a lot of families that have kids home. There's young parents, and you guys are young parents. I'm not a parent. I have a dog. That's it. And so I'm going to be quiet for most of this episode. But you guys are parents. You guys have a 10, 9, 5, and 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And so
Well done.
Thank you. Yep, they're my nieces and nephews, so I should know. But you guys have all of those kids home right now where you guys would not normally have those kids home. You probably have 3 of them at school. And so navigating that during this season, we just want to have a conversation because there's a lot of parents that are probably dealing with that same thing. And so before all that, I do want to do something fun. I want to have ask you guys some interesting questions about your family. So I'll get started with that. But if I want to ask you, first off, just because it's parenting, which one of you guys are the most strict? I mean, I'm guessing it's Addison, just because he's strict with me. But
Yeah, I'm curious what his answer's
I
going
would
to
say
be.
Juli.
Wow.
Yeah,
In what ways?
Every way. I do think you're more strict.
Yeah, I probably am more strict.
I'm probably more strict about schoolwork. And,
wow,
and
that's good.
like educational stuff.
He's more strict with me. I'm more strict with the children.
So
Yeah.
Juli takes out what Addison takes out. No kidding.
It's like a cyclical effect.
It's a big circle, yeah. So it's Addison.
Yeah, I think
No kidding.
I think it's me, mostly proximity.
Yeah.
Like I think because we have a traditional kind of format where Addison works 8 to 5 and I'm with the kids. I get to be with the kids. So it is more like a proximity that causes the more strictness, I would say.
I would say we're pretty similar.
Yeah.
We're in the same area on the scale.
Yeah.
So it's a hard question.
You guys are great parents.
But I would pick Juli.
Yeah. Good. All right. That's what I expected.
The kids
you both
probably-
to choose each other.
I think the kids would say me too, to
Okay.
be completely fair.
Well, the kids always tell the truth, so I guess we know. Awesome. Well, let's ask this. So, TV family. A lot of people are watching TV right now, a lot of TV shows. So, what TV family do you guys, or it could be movie family, do you guys best relate to? Is it the Brady Bunch? Could be Modern Family. It could be Pride and Prejudice family. Just anything.
I would go with something a little more old school, like Pride and Prejudice, except we have 2 boys and 2 girls. But just because especially right now, our life is really simple. But even before COVID, like we just are people who really value our time at home and our time with our children. And so it's just anything that has more of like a simple feel to it, I think resonates. What would you say?
I'd agree.
The Simpsons?
We were talking about this the other night. I've never seen an episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Someone made a reference to The Simpsons, and they're like, "Do you know a character from The Simpsons?" I said, "Bart." I know Bart, but that's it.
I think that's best, honestly. We were not allowed to watch that stuff.
We would watch Simpsons as a family. I think it came on like Sunday night. My mom wouldn't, but my dad would like turn on Simpsons, and we were like, okay.
I've never been into like the adult cartoons.
Yeah.
I don't get them.
How about you, Arden?
We know you like your
I was
cartoons.
into adult cartoons.
One yesterday.
Avatar is an amazing TV show. Okay,
They're sponsoring this podcast.
They are, exactly. So we'll move on. Yeah, all right.
Fire.
Yeah, like your book, right? Speaking of Addison's book. But awesome. Well, cool. Well, I mean, actually, I'll just ask one more question. And I know this is kind of an awkward question, but I think we need to get it out on the table. So if you guys had a family secret, what would it be? And I'm not talking about our family. I'm talking about your family.
So you want me to share a secret
So don't
about
share
you?
my news.
Okay. Family secret.
What would a family secret be?
Do you guys do a weird dancing ritual before you go to
we
bed?
do dance. We turn music on really loud
Good.
and dance sometimes when we're cleaning the kitchen.
What's
But
something-
that's
I feel like there's
we're
something strange we do. We do give our like 5 and 9-year-old and 10-year-old coffee every Saturday.
That's not a secret. I mean,
No,
that's
but it
like-
might be frowned upon.
Yeah. People used to get mad at mom for giving us coffee when we were kids.
Yeah, you grew up.
They said it would stunt growth.
Pretty
but,
tall. So
yeah, I'm at 6'2".
You could have been 7 foot.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true. I could have been in the NBA right
There's
now
no way you're
instead of doing
6'2".
podcasts.
there's no way you're 6'2".
Oh, God.
You're at least 6'3".
Who knows? All right. Well, anyways, so I want to transition, get into the serious stuff, have plenty of time to be able to talk about parenting. Let you guys talk about parenting because I can't do it.
No, I'd
So,
actually really like to hear your thoughts on parenting.
I have really great thoughts on parenting. I'm going to be an amazing parent.
Do you have an
when that
announcement to
time
make,
comes.
actually? Because this would be a really
I
appropriate
I don't, I wish I did.
Episode.
But
This is how they dreamed of
COVID-19
it.
is not
No?
giving us any
Christian,
kids.
no?
Christian,
No?
Nope,
Okay.
Christian's good.
I have sent Christian like Pinterest ideas of how to announce she's pregnant. I'm like, hint, hint.
Yeah, we're gonna hold off. We're gonna wait until we can listen to more podcasts on parenting.
There we
So,
go.
so I want to ask you guys just right off the bat, what are the just essentials of parenting well?
Let's popcorn. Patience.
I would say humility. We've talked about this a lot, but that humility creates safety. That's something that our parents did really well. Is they apologized a ton. Like mom and dad apologized so much, and they would fight in front of us, or they would be unkind or something, or wouldn't believe the best, and they would come and they would apologize, and that modeled something for us that was really special. So
Flexibility.
I'm still learning that one.
Yeah, I think.
What do you mean by flexibility?
I think. Well, I'll say with your first child, you're new, and so you get into a rhythm of doing things, and they're always your first. Like they're your first 5-year-old, your first 10-year-old, your first teenager, your first adult. But then, so we have 4, and with each one, you have to be flexible about the way that you have figured out parenting, because it changes, because it's different child to child and situation to situation, even with the same child. So having that flexibility within yourself to really just be fluid in your parenting and in your ideas. There are some things that never change, but even like hot topics like discipline. We have had to approach discipline so different, child to child, and then stage to stage, even within that same child.
Yeah.
And I think if you have this mentality of to be a good Christian parent means I have to spank every single time my kids do anything wrong. I'm just going there right away.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I think it puts you in a box.
Yeah.
And it takes away the relational aspect that is always supposed to be so present in your parenting.
Yeah. Because parenting isn't a formula.
Yeah.
To your point, flexibility, every single child requires something different. And that's how it is with relationship. So I have to interact with you, Arden, different than I interact with Alec, or different than I interact with Austin.
Yeah.
And I think it's lazy parenting when we're just like, hey, I'm going to treat you all the same way because this is what I knew, or this is what I perceive to be best. It shows your kids that you know them and you see them when you take the time to correct them, to inspire them, to challenge them in a way that speaks their language. And as Julie said, there are principles that carry across the board, right? So regardless of what method you use to encourage, to correct, to discipline, those things, they need to be a part of what we do as parents. But how you do that really needs to be a reflection of your dynamic with that child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, because I think a lot of people just think it's the one mold. I have one kid as you start out with, and you get the second one, and you're like, okay, well, it's working for the first kid, just do the same thing for the second. And it's very much, you've got to understand all of that, the personalities and being able to relate to them differently. So let me ask you guys this, is what have been some trial and error moments, some things that you guys have learned through trial and error?
Wow.
Bedtime.
Bedtime?
For sure. We did a really good job when our kid, this goes back to in different stages, making things a formula, wanting to make them a formula. And I have so much grace for parents and even just for humans who really do desire formulas out of life, because it does give you some sense of control, which is a real struggle.
Yeah.
And within parenting, you know it's important, you know it's heavy and big, and yet within that, it's like you want to feel like you're doing it right. You're constantly looking for people and situations to assure you you're doing this right. You're not messing up this human in a way that can't ever be fixed. And so we would do a great job with our babies, with our infants, like sleep training them, like 2 weeks. It just was so important to us early on, because we're both people who really like our sleep, really need our sleep to be good people. And so we sleep train them, but then it's like they would get to the age, maybe 2, 3, where they could start talking and asking questions and developing like, oh, well, you're not going to sleep. Why do I need to go to sleep? They would start looking for ways out of it. And we just stuck with the real rigid, like, it's bedtime because we say it's bedtime, and you just got to get in bed or else we're going to lose.
Yeah.
Like, this is our time. And it became such a struggle. Yeah, it's like we stayed in that struggle for a little while where we just dreaded bedtime.
Yeah.
Because we were so desperate for our time in the evening together. And our kids, it felt like they were our enemies.
Yeah.
We were desperate for what was next.
Yeah.
And I think that's something like in general in life, even for people out there who aren't parents, when we get to that place where we can't navigate or can't tolerate or don't have patience for what we're in right now because we want what's next, we're in a dangerous place. And that was actually the cure for us, putting the kids down to bed, was actually allotting a little more time and remembering, because what would happen, at least for me, Arden, is I would get the kids down and then I would feel guilty about how I put them down. And then I would want to go back downstairs and interact with them and apologize. And then they're just confused. They're like, wait, why are you back down here? Like, we just had a war to get me into bed, and now you're here like talking to me and apologizing to me. And so what shifted for us is when we stopped rushing bedtime, and we viewed bedtime as not something that we had to get through, but an opportunity for us to create a moment with our kids. And then bedtime started to become really meaningful. And I think that's something that all of us can learn about life, like not just looking on to that next thing, but seeing this moment that we're in now as something that has promise, that has potential, that has purpose, and that allows us to enjoy this moment, because then our kids would be down, and then we would have our time together. And so that next season does come eventually.
Yeah. Well, I think I have a question even around that, is like, because I think that kind of goes into is where people are trying to navigate that, and they're so like, oh, we just want to get the kids down so we can rest.
Yeah.
Well, then how do you keep fire, honestly, like the passion and intimacy within your marriage when you're navigating, getting your kids down, navigating work, navigating, all the busyness that life brings? How have you guys been able to cultivate that as you guys look at each other with those eyes?
I would say it's something that you just have to be really intentional about.
Okay.
And something that helps us is when, at least I'm more prone to do this, I'll kind of get into my world where I'll just be inside my head, and I'll get the kids down and I'll need to defrag, and I won't bring Julie into my process of defragging, and that will compromise our ability to be intimate because I'm not bringing her into the challenges of the day. And so that's something that I'm still working on. I've gotten better at, but I'm still working on like bringing her into that at night, where I don't just want to like disconnect and disengage from everything. But then with so we've been married for almost 12 years. When it comes time to intimacy, like you have to be intentional with intimacy, and intimacy isn't just an act. It's a state of relationship. And so so that's something that's cultivated throughout the day, throughout the week. And then when we do have those moments alone, then we're able to take advantage of the intimate moment because we've been practicing that throughout the week.
Yeah. And really practically, and just some real talk, is like, you need to be having sex with your spouse. And through our 12 years, we've gone through ebbs and flows in our marriage. I mean, we've had 4 children, so even that alone brings so much change.
Like 4 to 6 weeks of no lovemaking.
Oh,
I'm just, hey, listen, I'm just letting people know what to expect when you're expecting.
There was a time when I was talking to my sister, Ada, about just some struggles Addison and I continued to come up against. And she said, like, are you having sex 2 times a week? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, you're not counting? I'm like, no. You're not counting. Like, that is so weird. That's so like an old person thing to do. And she's like, if you're not, like, you will feel that in your relationship. And I agree 100% with Addison that intimacy is something that's cultivated. It's not just a physical act, but it takes the physical act. There is something that happens that cannot be confined to words between husband and wife when you set aside the time, set aside the intentionality to make quality lovemaking. Like, anyway. And it's important. Like, it is important, and it is so necessary for husband and wife, and especially mom and dad. That made me think of my mom and dad.
Exactly. That's the first
Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Especially if you're a mother and a father, because then it can start to feel, and we've experienced moments of this, it can start to feel like you are just business partners who are like running this organization and
different areas
of
authority, of expertise.
You're just side by side,
responsibility.
like, stay in your lane, do your thing, I'll stay in my lane and do my thing, and your lanes just have to intersect.
Wow. And the thing is too is that when you are having sex as a couple, like, that's something, if you're not having conversations that you need to have, it makes that awkward. And so it's one of those things that helps you be open. And so
Because if you don't want to do that, there's a reason, and that's real. And you need to be having conversations to get to the bottom of that. Even if that means like conversations with a professional or with a pastor or with an outside perspective involved. You're right. It's such a good, almost like a temperature gauge for the intimacy of the relationship.
That's really good. Okay, let me ask you guys this, because just as we're going through it, I know we talked about a ton about intimacy, but I kind of, as you guys were talking about intimacy, I think that's so good, and I think that's really important. But I wanted just to maybe see if you guys had anything that you wanted to specifically kind of say or encourage, maybe even single parents during this time. Parents that maybe have 3 kids, and it's only a mother or father, and just navigating that, in all seasons of life.
Absolutely. I think ask for help. Like, I grew up with a primarily single parent majority of the time, and one of 6 children, and something my mom did really well was she didn't expect to have to be everything for all of us. She knew that it was, she believed 100% these children, each of them came from God and were a gift, and that he was going to provide for them. And that wasn't going to be able to look like she was going to be able to give them everything. And that's not unique to single parents. I think it plays out uniquely in very practical ways with single parents, but like Addison and I are not going to be everything for our children. And not just because we have 4. If we had 1 child between us, we wouldn't be everything for that 1 child. So ask for help. Like, if a single mom, and I'm sad to say, I am not in a relationship with more single moms. But if a single mom were to ask me for anything, I certainly would be more than willing to help.
That's awesome. That's good. Okay, well, kind of transitioning back to the kids, what have been some intentional things that you guys do with your kids that has really helped? Like, I know that your kids are, like you talked about bedtime. Like, even when I babysit, August, every time he's like, he can't go to bed without, reading a story. And I know from my mom, like mom used to read to us boys all the time. When my dad was out traveling, she used to sit down and read before we went to bed, and that created really great moments. And so what have been some intentional things that you guys have done within your just parenting lives?
We create space for conversation with our kids. So we do that. The kids feel safe having conversations with us, which is huge. We've been very intentional to make it clear to our children that they can talk to us about anything, and they're not going to get in trouble for talking to us about stuff, and which has led to some really interesting, honest, open conversations with them. We do dinner together as a family around the table. We actually used to have a rectangular table, and we sold it and got a circular table because we wanted everyone to be able to see everyone around the table. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that we do. And then we try to have fun together. We try to play together. I think play is undervalued. Yeah. Like, it's really, really important for especially smaller children. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really important for adults too. Yeah. This isn't just something for children to play. Yeah. Like, it's important that we get out and we do fun things. And so something that I do quite often is I go out in the front yard and I play with Asher and neighborhood kids. Like, we invent different games that we play out there and stuff like that, and normally sports games, and they have a great time. Yeah. And the kids in the neighborhood, they even come over and they knock on the door and they're like, "Can Asher play?" She was like, "No." "Can Mr. Addison play?" So it just goes to show. It just goes to show that kids, they need that. They need play. Yeah. And so finding ways to do play well is really important.
Yeah. And we have really intentionally not filled our schedule so full that we don't have space for spontaneity and just margin for times when one kid needs a little more attention. We really have been very careful about that. Yeah. But yeah, and practically we have started doing a weekly Sabbath. Yeah. Which we've probably been doing it like 4-5 months now.
Yeah, 4 or 5 months.
And it has so massively affected our family dynamic. Even during this time of COVID, our kids look forward to that because we start on Friday night with a big meal, and where we like all help in the kitchen, and I make bread and we make a dessert, and they look forward to it with such anticipation. And then all Saturday, we don't do any screens. We just read and we play games together. And it has become like such a lifeline for our family and for the connection between us and our children. Yeah. So I highly, highly recommend that. And just implementing it whatever way makes sense. Like, don't get bound up in the religion of like, well, I'm not Jewish. Why would I do a Shabbat or a Sabbath? Like, do whatever makes sense where you have a set weekly pause for you and your family.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. I mean, I think like just in the little times that I've actually gotten to babysit your kids is they don't remember the times that they're watching the TV screen. They remember the little tiny moments, like just the little things that we think of that we can spend time with them. And that got me kind of more creative last time I was actually even watching them of what can I do. And so I do want to ask a question. This is kind of a deeper question. This will be the last question, but I think something that probably a lot of parents are having to navigate, and of this generation that previous generations did not have to navigate as much, is just there's a lot of change, and there's a lot of things that are becoming more and more okay in the world that we as Christians, it's just not a part of what we honestly believe. And so how do we navigate having those conversations when the world is trying to normalize things? Whether that's squeezing things into movies or just kind of normalizing it around, maybe even the schools that they go to. Sure. How do you guys navigated those conversations for your kids?
I think first and foremost is that we have never treated it as a single conversation. Like, this is something, like Addison said, we're going to continue to talk about, and just reiterated to them, like, feel freedom to come and talk to us about it, because it's big, and we have never tried to act like we have all the answers. Like, we are intentional with what we share with them, but allowing them to understand, like, you can ask God these questions too, and he'll show you. And so I think for us, it's been about the way we've chosen to live our lives. Because as parents, that is the loudest message that your kids are ever going to hear, is the way you're choosing to live your life. And just leaving those lines of communication so open.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Arden, where you said, how do you have these conversations? The key is, even if you don't know how to have them, just to have them.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing what your kids know and what your kids have been exposed to that you just don't realize.
Avoidance is not an option.
It's not.
Yeah.
And I think a parenting technique where it's like, oh, I'm gonna hide my kids from these truths of what's going on in our world.
Yeah.
I think that's really dangerous, because if you introduce it to the kids in a way that's healthy, in a way that's biblical, in a way that reflects your values as a family, then you get to start steering that conversation. But if you come in after the fact, then it feels reactive.
Yeah.
And your kids are like, well, why didn't you share this with me?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you tell me about this? And so it almost becomes an issue of trust, where they feel like there's a violation of trust. I'm not saying like expose your kids to everything super young. That's not what I'm saying. But I mean, I'll tell you this: I started having the sex talk with Asher when he was 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And I had it for like a year and a half with him.
Yeah.
Until I finally told him, like, okay, this is literally what it is. But I was preparing him for it.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's not a single event. It's a way of life. Like, hard conversations should be a way of life. And what we've noticed is our kids are most inclined to have hard conversations right before they go to bed. So if you want to take advantage of a time like when you really have your kids' attention, do it right before they go to bed.
Yeah.
That's when they're most open to receiving from you. During the day, they're distracted. They're like, hey, I want to do this. I want to go play out there or whatever. But things come out at night. And if you listen to what they're saying and even to what they're not saying, and you ask the right questions, things will come out.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I love that. Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks, guys, so much for taking time and sharing out of the busy schedule of COVID-19 family. But we appreciate it. And I know a lot of people will love your insight and just something that you guys have done and modeled so beautifully to everyone here on the team.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah,
I feel like it's really important. So we're in a season right now, and I know people will listen to this after we're through COVID, but for the people who are listening to this during COVID, we're in a season right now where everything has changed. And so I feel like as parents, we need to be okay with relaxing some of our standards. We got an email from one of the kids' teachers, and she said, look, if you have to choose between being your child's educator or your child's parent, choose being their parent.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so the world around us, everything around us is relaxing its standards. We as parents, I think we need to relax our standards with our kids. And I'm not talking about like how they treat each other. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. But expectations that we're placing on them, the way we're pushing them, the way we're challenging them, I do think this is a very unique season. And I think we need to be sensitive to what's happening in this season.
Yeah.
And I think all around, not just in parenting, but a big takeaway is let the big things be the big things.
Yes.
Like allow this to be a time where the sediment and other things are kind of being sloughed away. Like let the big things just be.
Yeah.
In parenting, in your personal life, in your relationship with God, like what a gift too.
That's awesome. We, I think you guys would both agree that one of the best things that we can do, or that people can do, not we, I'm not a young parent, but that people can do is to get together with like-minded, with people that are going through the similar things. And so other young parents. And so if you guys want to, you can actually start a group today. We have actually groups where it's single mothers groups, where a girl is literally leading a bunch of single mothers through the curriculum and resources that we produce for Messenger and Sons and Daughters. And so if you guys want to sign up to become an ambassador and lead a group, you can go to sonsanddaughters.tv. And also, we love hearing from you guys. So please make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you comment to this podcast. Comments that maybe topics that you want to hear from us, things that you want us to cover, and have further conversations about it. We so appreciate you guys tuning in to Let's Talk About It with Sons and Daughters. We'll see you next time.